You're watching the debate edition of Frank Discussions. In this format, the hosts have assigned positions, one for and one against a topic, regardless of their personal views. The arguments you hear here are not necessarily their personal opinions, but are in keeping with the rules of the debate. The goal is to challenge ideas and spark critical thinking.
Hi, everyone. My name's Kamal, and I will be arguing in favor of the moot today, which is journalism is practiced freely and uninhibited in Guyana. My opposition is Abina Rockcliffe, and we have the benefit of both being journalists, so we have working experience to have a fruitful conversation. I want to note first that prior to having this debate, Abina and I agreed that the scope of the issues we would tackle would be limited to the last 10 years, so that what we could do is have some level of homogeneity in terms of the things that we're talking about, because every nation has had their trouble with respect to things like media suppression in their development. And at least looking at the last 10 years would allow us to not consider the imprisonment of a journalist 15, 20 years ago to what's happening today, because we have gotten a lot of improvement. And that's the basis on which I'm making the case today that journalism is practiced freely and uninhibited in Guyana. And so the terms that we've included in the moot, when we say freely, we are referring to the extent to which a journalist feels okay to write, print, and say the truth as they know it. And when we talk about uninhibited, we're referring to the extent to which there is not undue interference by powerful actors, mainly the state, in the work of journalists. And when I say undue interference, I'm talking about things like active censorship of the work that journalists do. I'm talking about imprisoning journalists. I'm talking about violence against journalists. And none of these things are happening in Guyana. As a matter of fact, when you look at the media arena in this country, we have a healthy diversity of media houses, many of which today I can't even keep up with. But when you look at, for example, the two main independent newspapers that we have in this country, 𝐷𝐵𝐸 News and 𝐾𝐢𝐬𝐬 News, these newspapers especially practice a kind of journalism that is at times very abrasive to the government. And there is not that kind of undue interference in their work that I'm talking about. 𝐾𝐢𝐬𝐬 News, for example, is an extremely sensational newspaper, to the extent that sometimes you see the vice president responding to them every other week, even though he believes that sometimes the things they post or say may not make sense or may be misinformed or too sensational to be accurate. There isn't that kind of interference in their work. And 𝐷𝐵𝐸 News as well has done an excellent job. We have newspapers and online media outlets that are perceived to be unbiased, to be acting in favor of the opposition, acting in favor of the government. I'd say the only thing that we would say is kind of wrong is when a government is in power, that government has more control over the airwaves. And so there tends to be more coverage in favor of the government rather than the opposition. But really, the point I'm making is that our Constitution guarantees freedom of expression and, by extension, freedom of the press. And I would say that you and I feel free to practice our journalism without fear or favor. And one example I'm going to give is an excellent story that you wrote, Abina, the other day on Guyana Standard. with respect to Method 4, right? The selection of Method 4 and the concern that this award was made of a consultancy contract by Guyana Power and Light to Method 4, that there could have been some sort of incestuous relationship between Method 4 and GPL. And we saw what happened there. And then we saw that you received a threat from a lawyer that your writing could have, by innuendo, bring into disrepute Kezia and Dalal. And then you made a video where you said, I'm not backing down, essentially. And that was admirable. And that's because you live in a country where, as a journalist, you feel the freedom and the comfort to do that. I'll also talk about my experience,
Right.
because I covered the election in 2020. And so I'm talking about experiences under both governments.
Yes.
So that was your PPP experience. When I covered the election in 2020, we had a situation where there were multiple attempts to rig the vote count in Region 4, the largest region, in favor of the APNU-AFC. And that vote count, those first two counts that were not used, if used, they would have given the APNU-AFC the victory and placement in government that we eventually saw by way of the recount the people didn't actually vote for. And I did a lot of data-driven reporting in addition to spending a lot of time under the recount tent out in front of the 𝐼𝐸𝐻 Conference Center, where we saw politicians come out time after time to talk to the media. It was so crazy. The media had so much power then that they called the tent the slaughterhouse. They called it the abattoir. And that just goes to show you, this was a time when we had a pandemic.
Yes.
And the government had to take extreme measures to protect the public. I know there are many varying opinions about whether the government overstepped its authority in things like the decision not to allow the Carter Center to return to Guyana to observe the recount. But even under those scary conditions, myself and my colleagues felt comfortable enough that we could practice our journalism freely and uninhibited, to go on social media and say, when Aubrey Norton came to the recount tent and he said the things that were false about what was going on at the recount, we published that on Kaieteur News. I published that on my social media.
Right.
And we didn't feel as though there would be retribution in that regard. So under both governments, we have situations where we can freely and openly be critical of the government. And with respect to the amazing reporting that you did recently, it's not just you, but we saw that Starbuck News, we saw that Anand Gulsaran went on to continue to ventilate this issue about GPL. And I want to contrast that against the state of affairs that we see in many other countries. Right next door to us, in Venezuela, where there are multiple crises that have resulted in thousands of people crossing the border to go to different countries, and we have accepted a lot of those refugees. In Venezuela, journalists are beaten, they're detained, they're threatened, they are blocked or forced off the air, and they face raids. So what this results in is a media atmosphere in Venezuela in which you cannot be critical of the government without facing that sort of retribution. That's right next door. So contrast the state of affairs in Guyana with Venezuela. Let's look to another continent. The UN Human Rights Office on the occupied Palestinian territory said that since October 7, 2023 to June 6, 2025, when they made this report, that 227 Palestinian journalists were killed. That's when they made a report condemning Israel's military pattern of killing journalists in Gaza. So, I mean, I think it's pretty easy to make the case when you look at the state of affairs in Guyana and, just the full length and breadth and number of journalists who freely and openly every day open their social medias and their media websites to be extremely critical. I don't want to say overly because the connotation is that it's unjust. That's not my place to say. But they're extremely critical of the government, and what happens? Nothing happens.
First of all, I just want to say I'm happy for you that is your experience as a journalist, and you feel as if you can carry out your work freely and uninhibited. And I want to note, before I go into my substantive presentation, you noted the situation in Venezuela where you said journalists are beaten, threatened, and detained. And you noted that we're not imprisoned here, etc. Not because a situation is not as bad as the other makes it good. So if you compare someone with a broken leg to someone who has cancer, you might want to tell that person, cheer up, your leg gonna fix back, everything's gonna be fine.
Absolutely.
At least you don't have cancer. But that person is still experiencing pain and discomfort. How dare you tell them that they shouldn't? They should just look at the person who they're better off than.
I take that point.
Good.
Let's talk about the pain and discomfort.
Great. So you pointed out method 4 and my experience recently.
Yeah.
And you even noted the lawyer's letter that I was sent.
Yeah.
I might have appeared all well and good in my response, and that's mainly because I know that I did nothing wrong and I followed all the tenets of journalism. But you can imagine how scared I must have been receiving a lawyer's letter on behalf of the brother of the Attorney General. So sometimes even the threat of litigation could force journalists into a corner. And I find that in Guyana, that is happening a lot. We note that everybody, even Travis, half of the cabinet sued Travis. I'm not commenting specifically on what he might have done that caused that threat for him to be sued.
Yeah.
But this thing about a lawyer's letter and suing, it's being used so much, it's really to intimidate journalists. So while we might not be beaten and thrown in jail, there's so many measures that are being taken and utilized that it's really to just suppress free and fair journalism. You spoke about Starbuck News and how good they are, and Kaiju News. I'm trying to remember. I know
Can we talk about the lawyer's letter before?
Yes.
Do you think that people who believe that they're being defamed have the right to litigate that in the court?
They have the right to litigate that. But in this case, I didn't even call the man's name. I didn't even reference his position. And with that, without calling his name or referencing his position, he felt, oh, she's talking about me. I'm going to send her a lawyer's letter. Journalists don't want to spend their time in court when they could be out.
Is it not possible for you to indicate who someone is without calling their names, by innuendo, by describing them in certain ways that eliminate everybody else?
Yes, Kemal, I challenge you to say what was in that article that referenced him in any way,
No,
even
I'm
in
not
the slightest
saying that
way.
you did that specifically.
Well, let
I'm
us not
saying
focus
that he
on
has
that.
the right to try to ventilate that by way of his lawyer, because the reason that
It was extreme, Kemal. And I really don't want us to focus on this before they send our show a lawyer's letter. So let's move on. You spoke about Kaiju News and Starbuck News. I just want to remember, why did Starbuck News start their subscription?
their subscription.
Yeah, you have to subscribe to Kaiju News, the Starbuck News, the online version. You know why they did that?
You're gonna tell me.
Yes, I am. It's because state ads were taken away from Starbuck News because of their reporting. I can't be sure because I'm not sure if it fall in the 10-year system, that the 10-year span that we agreed to, but that is why they had to do that. So finances now, that's another thing that is used to keep journalism and keep media practitioners in their place because they have to remain viable. They have to be able to pay their reporters. And if it's either, so I don't have to go on. You understand the implications.
I understand. I actually reported on this when I was at 𝐲𝐬 News. So yes, it falls within the period. It was under the PPP government. It was in 2021, right? Or
No, it was before 2021.
oh, so they were talking about years ago.
So something, but the reason that they had to do that, it's because state ads were taken away and they faced possible shutdown because of this, and they had to find another way to survive, and that's why they started the subscription.
So I remember when I was reporting on this issue, when I looked at the statistics of their report, I don't think that the reduction in column inches or however they reported the reduction was so much that it threatened the viability of the newspaper.
I think you might be talking about two separate instances. It did, in the case that I'm speaking about, it threatened the viability of the newspaper. And Starbuck News is not the only one. 𝐲𝐬 News, I think they had to raise the price of their paper. They didn't charge for the online. I think this is far beyond back where, but again, don't let us get stuck on that. I don't want to run out of time before I can
Well,
speak to
I don't
my
want us
presentation.
to go outside of the scope of the discussion.
Okay, fair
Can,
enough.
can we
So-
establish that it was not within the scope of our
I
debate?
can't remember what year it was. Anyhow,
It was PPP. It was PPP that did it.
yes, it was PPP.
Okay, so it's outside of the scope of the
Okay,
debate.
fine.
But
So free.
just let me make one more point about the state ads thing, because I think we're going to be hearing this complaint moving forward. We hear Glenn Lal talking about it because the vice president has said that we're looking at the evolution of media these days. And
They love to talk about that now. That's their favorite pastime.
well, for the record, I am not.
They talk about that so they can introduce people like Critic and them as part of the
For the record,
substantial media.
I am not endorsing or not endorsing the statements made by the president in that regard about
Okay.
redefining media.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that what we see now is the increase in popularity of online media. And it is entirely justified if the government decides, now that we have more online media, especially online media that's getting a lot more traction, that it's time to reevaluate the distribution of ads to online media too. And maybe this will result in a decrease of ads to newspapers.
Okay, but if you decrease ads for that reason, it doesn't fall into my point. If you decrease ads because a newspaper is being too loud about a certain thing, that is when it would affect my point. So going back to, finally, I might be able to start my substantive argument.
Go ahead.
Free, I have to redefine it for my purpose. I didn't like your definition.
Sure.
It would be not under the control of another. So state media in Guyana is not free. Chronicle is not free. NCN is not free. They're under the direct control of government actors. Government actors can call reporters and tell them what to do. I understand this to be this is okay in the case of DPI because DPI is the communication arm of government, but that is not the case for NCN and Guyana Chronicle. So they are not free.
Do you think that the people who work for NCN or Chronicle, they are hamstrung in that they don't want to report in a certain way?
Kemal, you're in the
Okay,
media. You know
hold on a
this.
second.
Kemal, stop
Do you think
interrupting
that-
me
do you-
unduly.
Do you think that the government should not have media outlets? It should not own a newspaper.
That is
or
not
it
what
should not own
exists
a
now. I'm
broadcaster?
speaking about what exists now. Like the Senyo Kemal.
No, I'm trying to
So
establish.
the state, not the government, Chronicle is state owned.
Yeah.
NCN is state owned. We have situations of, and this is not only on the PPP. This is on the PPP and APNU. They would call reporters and tell them what to do. They would have to Photoshop this and Photoshop the, and they feel pressured to report in a way that is pleasing to to the powers that be. Please allow me to move on. Please allow
doctoring
me to move
pictures.
on.
No, I just wanna establish.
Uninhibited,
I did,
without restraint or restrictions. So even those of us who are free, who might not be under the pressure of getting a call from a minister, we are not allowed to operate uninhibited. The so-called free press, we are under attack from all quarters. We're under attack from people in we own set. We're under attack from government officials. We're under attack from opposition people. Even though they're not in government, they still feel as if they have the right to speak in a certain way about journalists. And especially now with government politicians,
yeah.
they seem to have this admiration for Trump and the way that he deals with the media, and so they have been adopting it. And the chief cook and bottle washer this, you know, is who?
The president?
His Excellency. Thank you for guessing correctly.
No, I know what the sentiment is.
Right. So,
but are you done
His
establishing your
Excellency,
definitions?
yeah, but let me speak because
Okay.
His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali seems to be like on a mission to put the media in its place. He is aggressive.
Yeah.
And I recall I was so upset with the Guyana Press Association
Yeah.
to the point that I almost didn't go to the last elections
Yeah.
because of this instance with Sherwin Belgrave. This man stood and asked the president a question at one of his press conferences.
I remember.
And Dr. Ali, His Excellency, embarrassed this reporter.
Yeah.
So we might not be thrown in jail, but we will be told on national television that you don't have your life together if you don't have a house lot and you're not building, as if most of the young people in Guyana get house lot and building. So there was that. And then we had more recently Svetlana, when she asked the president about, I think it was the firm that they hired to defame Azzedine and call him a Maduro puppet. And, oh gosh, I nearly go off top. It shot in my head. Anyhow, so he started on Svetlana and he was aggressive with her and started asking her the question as if she was the president and he's the reporter. He started to question her.
Yeah.
And because of the instances are so many now, it wasn't a big deal. It's becoming the norm in Guyana for this kind of aggression. And of course, you know, he's a leader. And where he leads, the others will follow.
Yeah.
And it is not as bad with the other ministers as yet. But when he continues, it's most likely that all of them going to adopt this attitude and all of them going to want to play the disrespecting journalists and telling them about not getting this and not getting that. Earlier this year, GPA accused Ali of laying the groundwork to regulate press online content. And, well, you know what happened after that. I don't want to go into that. So we have the president and actors being a certain way. And I want to know, too, that while the vice president, and he has come a long way from when he banned Gordon Mosley from going at office of the president. No, sorry, that's outside the scope. Yeah, I take it back, please. I take it back. Strike it from the hands. But he has come a long way. And there are many cases where I admire him now with the restraint he shows with those Kaieteur News reporters who would ask him the same questions every week in different ways, sometimes in the same way that they asked him last week.
Yeah.
And he exercises restraint.
Yeah.
But you know what? There are other actors there at that very press conference who make the reporters feel uncomfortable. You can get critic at the back there. So while he ain't saying it, critic there and other people there and people from other news agencies, I want to call name thing, there and making reporters feel intimidated. So we have that too. Oh, and don't forget the online trolls. Don't forget the trolls, Kimal. They are aggressive.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to make the point that even in the cases where the politicians are doing the dirty work themselves, they got the people doing it for them. And one might say we can't be sure that Jack Dio is sanctioning that or it's approved by him. But if not, tell them to stop. And then I have here in my notes, the threat of legal liability can be enough to silence journalists. We covered that before when in my rebuttal, so I don't have to go into that too. But I like to say that in my years of journalism, I've been threatened twice by Rickford Burke and most recently by 𝐾𝐻𝐻. Rickford was during when APNU was in government, something but some foreign thing story, and he said me
You were at 𝐾𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐜 News?
no, I was a Guyana Standard.
Okay.
But he told me that he's going to sue. It never materialized, but yeah, he didn't even send a lawyer's letter. He just told me that he will. So media houses. Oh, I have here, but we spoke about that already because I was speaking about their viability. But I want to note now that even media houses that are not biased, they feel certain restraint that certain things they just can't discuss because of the repercussions, and these repercussions are not to be thrown in jail or to be beaten. It's not a. Who was the guy at 𝐾𝐢𝐬𝐬 News that you covered? Khashoggi, Jamal Khashoggi.
Jamal Khashoggi?
Yes.
The Saudi Arabian
When they
guy.
cut him into
Yeah.
pieces. Yes. So we don't have those extreme cases in Guyana, but we have some serious cases. Then we have the obsession now in redefining the media. I have it here as government sponsored infiltration of the media corps.
Yeah.
The determination of who's a journalist being the new pastime of these politicians, it dampens the freedom of journalists to practice, and it erodes public trust in the media corps, because then if they see now certain actors as real journalists and they see their behavior, then that is a reflection now on the press. So I touch on the pseudo journalists. You said in your argument that we have freedom of expression enshrined in our Constitution,
Yeah.
but that's general. There's no specific protection for the media. And you reference countries. One of the countries you referenced, Venezuela, right next door. Why didn't you reference Trinidad, who has that directly in their Constitution, protection for the media in this way?
Well, you're teaching me that now.
Look, you shunt your shoulder.
Okay. I want to respond to some of the things you said.
Okay, but listen, you propose, you want to respond to me too?
Yeah, I have to be able to rebut
All right,
your
fine, it's fine.
rebuttals.
And now I notice that they're promising to enforce the Freedom of Information Act. No, but let me hear your rebuttals.
Well, if you want to talk about the Freedom
No.
of Information Act.
You talk
Okay.
you seem
Okay.
there's much angst from you to respond. So let me hear you.
So I know that in this debate, we're not sharing our own opinions, but I feel compelled to say, and this is my opinion, that I went the first time I was there at the press conference when the president, how he responded to Shervin, and I watched a video of how he responded to Svetlana, and it left a really bitter taste in my mouth.
Okay.
Because I believe, first of all, that the role of a journalist is to ask the questions, not have the situation turned back on them.
Exactly.
If you are able to defend the things that you're saying as an official, then you should be able to take that criticism.
That's all I'm saying. Yeah, continue.
And the way he treated them, it was disrespectful. I know as a president, you expect a certain respect, but journalists and just people generally, they also deserve respect too.
And before
but
you,
yeah,
okay, I just want to know there too, and this goes back to why I say we're not free.
yeah,
Shervin or Sherwin?
Shervin.
Shervin. He was sent there. You have to understand that in the structure of media, you're as free as your publisher or your editor-in-chief wants you to be. A lot of the reporters from 𝐾𝐢𝐬𝐬 News, and you were at 𝐾𝐢𝐬𝐬 News, I was at 𝐾𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐬 News, who were sent to ask the same thing over and over. They're not free to say, no, I don't want to do this. No, I will not do it. And I am sure the president in his wisdom understands this.
You've
And
said
still,
no. You said no to Glenn Law, haven't you?
Yeah, but I am a different person. Come on, you must agree that I am a different person. I am
yeah.
like Shensi, a rebel from day one.
Yeah.
But these young reporters, they wouldn't want to tell Glenn Lal no. They don't want to have to go and work on the Chronicle that it might be worse for them. So they might weigh the two evils and say, okay, let me stay here. But Dr. Ali, in his wisdom, he must know that. And still, he embarrassed that young man. And mind you, Shervin, I don't know of his family, but he might be one of the progressive people in his family. Imagine how his family feel when they see that one of the progressive ones is being dubbed not serious about his life and his future. Anyway, as you were saying, continue.
One of the major statements you made was about people getting attacked by government. I wanted you to qualify the word attacked because I think that...
Of course, I didn't mean physical attack.
No, exactly. I want to know what it means because
So
I can't...
I want to say categorically that it's not that bad in Guyana where there was this time Freddie got feces thrown in his face, but...
Come on, don't escape the scope of our discussion.
that was
again.
before the 10 years? That was
Yeah,
beyond?
it was in a PPP administration prior to
Okay, so
2015.
sorry, strike that from the records. So and before I want to slip again, Ronald Waddle, he was before too, when he was executed. Okay, so yeah. So no, we can't keep that either. But we are not at the place now, modern day, where we feel that we will be physically attacked. But you must understand and agree that sometimes the mental or the attacks online or the attacks at the press conferences could have a damning effect on you as a journalist.
When you say attacks, an attack at a press conference, for example,
Word of mouth. You talk about you attack the journalists. They're okay. So this wasn't at a press conference, but let me give you an example of attack since you push me. The other day with the same Kesh Nanlal thing, after Kesh sent me a letter. Critic, who is known and accepted as an agent of the PPP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't know.
Continue, because I
Okay.
want to respond.
Okay. He went online and said he was speaking about Melly Mel and calling her an extortionist.
Yeah.
And then he said, and the other one from Guyana Standard, you see, the man had to send her a lawyer's letter. She's another one. She's an extortionist. No,
So he used
that is an
innuendo.
attack. No, that's not innuendo. He said the other one from Guyana Standard who was sued. That is directly me. That's not innuendo. He said the other person in the another section of the media or another media practitioner. But in the suing, they called and they plastered it all over Sheriff News and all of them. Sheriff even carried my picture.
Yeah.
So you still see that as an innuendo?
No.
Okay.
But the point I wanted to make, and this also applies to the threat of libel, I think that there is a line that we need to draw where sometimes when an official responds to and criticizes a journalist or when somebody decides that they think they're being defamed, it is okay for them to do that. I don't think as journalists we should want to assume that the work we do exists in a vacuum. The society is going to respond to the work that we do, especially if people think that you're being unfair to them, and that's okay for them to do. It's okay for them to say that, and it's okay for them to criticize
Unfair and
you.
libelous. You understand the weight of libel? You can't think, she's being unfair to me. She hurt my feelings. It could be me she's talking about. Let me
Libel,
sue her.
defamation, whatever. People have the right to go and have that ventilated in the court. People have the right to
And you have the right to say that.
respond to you. You don't agree with that?
I believe that you shouldn't misuse the legal system. And you shouldn't try to initiate legal action in such circumstances as the one in my situation. There was nothing to defame that man. In fact, anyway, I ventilated this before. But
Yeah,
I think
I won't...
you shouldn't abuse the system. We have backlogs. We have serious backlog. And they want to go add more for things that really didn't cross the line.
I won't pronounce on that specific situation whether it was...
Well, I was talking about that, and
defamation.
instances similar. If someone is defamed or someone is spreading lies or misinformation or disinformation, and that is a media person. This journalism is my profession. It's my career. I don't want people to misuse it. So if there are instances like that, yes, I believe you should take legal recourse. And another thing I want to say, in the media, and please note that I understand that you're confined to the rules of the debate. So when I say this, I really don't mean you. And I want to say that for the public. I really don't mean Kimal. But in many cases, media people are our own enemies.
Yeah.
They work against each other and instigate things. And I know of a particular media person who, anytime I write something in favor of the government, he would contact me and say, "Oh, you're taking setup," or "Oh, things and all." And anytime it goes in the other direction, you wouldn't hear a peep out of him. So I've learned now that I can be criticized from both sides, because many times people who are sympathetic to PPP have things to say about me, and people who are sympathetic to APNU and the other opposition parties, they have things to say about me. And it's not only people outside of the media. But I'll allow you to wrap up, Kimal.
Thank you, Avina.
You're welcome. Baby.
What I want to say finally is that I don't think that there's anything wrong with being criticized.
Okay.
And sometimes, and this is my true opinion,
Okay.
media operatives see criticism sometimes as being unduly executed against them. And of course, there are cases where criticism gets to the point where it is undue because it is done to strike fear into you and make you not want to do your work.
Yes.
But we should accept, and media houses and journalists should be more open to
Criticism.
also do criticism.
I'm not supposed to say anything else, but I just want to put in this one quickly. One of my editorials I wrote on infrastructure and the pace of development, where I said, whatever I said, the vice president at his very next press conference, he called it an asinine article. And he didn't debunk my arguments, but he sought to, whatever he did, the point of it is when people raised it with me, I hadn't a problem with it because I appreciated that what he said, he confined it to my work. But they have people, when they're criticizing the work, they have to get personal with reporters in the way that Glenn Lal did. When I wrote an editorial that Glenn Lal didn't agree with, he said, I sell out myself and prostitute myself to oil companies. Those are the things that I have a problem with. I am fine for criticism. I'm all for it.
Did that make you feel unfree? Did that make you feel inhibited?
Well, he is not a government official, but I would say the part about prostituting myself and selling up myself, that really hurt my feelings.
Especially given your history with him.
Yes, he was someone who I held as important to me for quite a time. And given my upbringing, and one of the worst things you can tell people from our families that we're not being true to ourselves and to our whatever is our craft at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So based on your comments, we conclude that there are ways in which government can make media operatives feel scared to do their work. And we can also conclude that this lack of freeness that some journalists might feel may not necessarily be relegated to what the government is doing,
Yes.
but what private citizens and businesses
And other politicians.
and other journalists are
Yes.
doing. Okay. So there you have it. We have made our cases. Although I feel I'm going to conclude here that Avina won this debate. I want to hear what you think. Thank you.
Thank you.